The sun was still rising when Ion walked toward the school gate. His small hands held the straps of a faded backpack. His shoes were torn at the sides, and the soles were cracked. The laces didn't match. His uniform shirt had a button missing, and his pants were stitched with rough thread. The guards at the gate looked at him but didn't say anything. Some students stared. Others laughed quietly and pointed. Ion kept walking. He didn't stop. He didn't look up. This was his first day at the expensive school in the city. His father, a poor farmer, had borrowed money and sold 2 goats just to get him admitted. Ion knew that. That's why he walked with pride, even if his shoes didn't match the other kids. Inside the classroom, the walls were clean, the desks polished, and the air smelled of books. Ion found a seat in the last row. He sat alone. The other children looked at him and whispered, "Who is he?" One girl asked, "Why does he smell like cow dung?" Another boy laughed. "He doesn't belong here," someone said louder. Ion heard every word, but he didn't respond. He opened his notebook and started writing the date in neat letters. When the math teacher entered, everyone stood up. She looked around, and her eyes paused on Ion. She frowned. "Who are you?" she asked. "I'm Ion, miss," he replied. "I'm new here." "Sit," she said coldly and turned away. Throughout the lesson, the teacher asked questions. Ion raised his hand twice but was ignored. During break, no one came to talk to him. He ate a small chapati with sugar from a cloth napkin. Others had sandwiches, juice boxes, and fancy lunch kits. One boy from the front row threw a wrapper at him. "Poor boy eats poor food," he teased. Ion didn't reply. After lunch, it was English class. The teacher gave a small writing test. Ion finished quickly and gave it in first. The teacher looked surprised. "Where did you study before?" she asked. "A village school, miss," Ion replied softly. "You write better than most of these city kids," she said under her breath. But not everyone was impressed. The principal, Mr. Verma, walked into the classroom an hour later. He had a file in his hand. His face was hard. He pointed at Ion. "You, come to my office." Ion stood up quietly and followed him. In the office, the principal threw the file on the table. "We made a mistake admitting you," he said. "Your father hasn't paid the second installment of fees. We cannot keep you here." "My father said he will pay after harvest, sir. Please give us some time," Ion begged. "This is not a charity house," Mr. Verma snapped. "Take this letter. You are expelled. Leave tomorrow." Ion took the letter with shaking hands. His eyes filled with tears, but he didn't cry. He walked out of the office slowly. As he passed the classroom, some students looked out the window. They saw the letter in his hand. They smiled and whispered again. The sun was setting when Ion reached home. His father was sitting on the floor, drinking tea. When he saw the letter in Ion's hand, he stood up quickly. "What is this?" he asked, worried. Ion said nothing. He just gave the letter and sat down quietly. The father read the letter, and his hands dropped. He sat down heavily. Silence filled the small house. Outside, the fields danced in the evening wind. Inside, everything was still. "I failed you, son," the father said after a long time. "No, Papa," Ion whispered. "You did everything for me." That night, as the oil lamp flickered, Ion looked at the stars. He held his notebook in his hands. He didn't know what would happen next. But far away, in another part of the country, a kind stranger read an email with the subject line, "This boy was thrown out of school for being poor. Can you help?" The next morning, Ion woke up early. Even though he had been expelled, his body still moved like it was a school day. He brushed his teeth, washed his face, and sat near the window with his books. His father watched him quietly. The old man's heart was heavy. He wanted to say something but didn't know how. His rough hands gripped the expulsion letter like it had burned him. After some time, he stood up and said, "Come with me." Ion didn't ask where. He simply nodded and followed his father. They walked past the green fields, past the village temple, past the old banyan tree. The villagers saw them and whispered, "They say the city school threw the boy out. Poor man worked so hard, sold his goats, his tools, all for nothing." Ion heard them, but he kept walking. His father didn't say a word. Finally, they reached the small post office in the village. The father took out a crumpled envelope from his pocket and handed it to the clerk. "Send this letter. It's urgent," he said. The clerk looked surprised. "Who is it for?" The father pointed to the name written on the envelope. "Mr. Raghav Bansal, CEO, Bansal Group of Industries." "Yes, that man," the farmer said. "My son once wrote a letter to his company. He admired Mr. Bansal. Maybe, just maybe, he'll remember." The clerk shook his head, unsure, but he stamped the letter and sent it. That night, the farmer sat under the open sky. His wife had passed away years ago. Now it was just him and Ion. He looked at his son, who was still reading, still studying, even after being kicked out. Tears rolled down the father's cheeks. "I have nothing left to give you," he whispered. "I gave everything. I thought education would change your life. But the world doesn't care about poor people." Ion put his hand on his father's. "Papa, you gave me love. You gave me dreams. That's more than most people ever get." The next morning came quietly. Birds chirped, the wind blew gently, and another day began. But in the city, inside a tall glass building, Mr. Raghav Bansal sat at his desk, sipping coffee. His secretary walked in holding a letter. "Sir, we received this from a village called Medapur. It's emotional." Raghav opened the envelope and pulled out a letter written in shaky handwriting. It said, "Dear Sir, my name is Hariram. I'm a small farmer. My son, Ion, was expelled from school because I could not pay the fees. He is bright, kind, and dreams of building machines for farmers like me. Please, if you can help us, even a little, I'll be thankful forever. I know you are a busy man, but I had to try. He admires you. He once wrote to your company about his dream." With folded hands, Hariram, a father. Raghav sat back in his chair. The name Adon felt familiar. He asked his secretary to search their records. Within minutes, she returned with another letter, this one from a child. It was written a year ago. "Dear Bansal Sir, I am Ion. I live in a village. My dream is to build low-cost machines for farmers. One day, I'll work with your company. I don't want to be rich. I want to help." Raghav stared at the two letters. His eyes softened. He stood up and said one word, "Prepare the helicopter." His team was shocked. "Sir, where are we going?" "To change a life." Back in the village, Ion sat outside his house, reading again. A loud sound filled the sky. Everyone looked up. A helicopter. People ran out of their homes, shielding their eyes from the dust. The chopper landed right in front of Ion's house. Doors opened. Out stepped two men in black suits, followed by a tall man in a blue coat. "Mr. Raghav Bansal." The villagers gasped. The father stood frozen. "Are you Hariram?" Raghav asked. The old farmer nodded slowly. "And this is Ion." Ion stood up. He couldn't speak. Raghav smiled. "You wrote to me once. Do you remember?" Ion nodded. "Well," Raghav said, "I remember too. You said you wanted to help farmers. I want to help you now." He turned to the villagers. "From today, Ion's education will be fully funded by me. He will study at the best school in the city. No one will ever stop him again." The crowd cheered. Some clapped. Some cried. Hariram dropped to his knees, tears pouring from his eyes. "No, sir, this is too much," he whispered. Raghav helped him up. "You gave everything for your son. Now let us do our part." Ion looked at his father, then at Raghav. In that moment, he knew. His life had changed forever. Ayan stood in front of a full-length mirror. He was wearing a brand new school uniform, sky blue shirt, navy trousers, polished shoes, and a tie that still felt strange around his neck. He held the blazer carefully, staring at the golden school badge stitched on its front. It all felt like a dream. Just 2 days ago, he was the boy in worn-out sandals and patched clothes. Now he was about to walk into the most expensive private school in the city. His father stood near the door, holding back tears. "You look like someone important," he whispered. Ayan smiled, but deep down he was scared. The driver outside honked gently. It was time to go. As the car drove through wide roads, past glass buildings and traffic lights, Ayan stared out the window, heart pounding. The last time he stepped into a school, he was humiliated, kicked out for being poor. What if this new school was no different? When the car stopped, he stepped out slowly. The school gates were huge. The campus was clean and full of tall green trees. Students walked in small groups, laughing, wearing the same uniform. But they looked different, confident, loud, and rich. Some had expensive bags. Others wore watches that probably cost more than his father's entire farm. As Ayan entered the main hallway, everything around him felt too shiny. Marble floors, big windows, smart screens on the walls. He had never seen such things in his life. A teacher walked up to him. "You must be Ayan," she said with a kind smile. "Welcome. Let me show you to your class." He followed her silently, his heart still nervous. When they entered the classroom, 20 pairs of eyes turned to him. "Everyone," the teacher said, "this is Ayan. He's new. Let's make him feel welcome." No one said a word. A few students whispered, "Look at his shoes. They're new, but cheap. Where do you think he's from? He looks nervous. Poor kid." Ayan sat at the back of the class, trying not to make eye contact. The day passed slowly. Every time he tried to speak, someone giggled. At lunch, no one invited him to sit with them. He sat alone on a bench near the school garden, eating the simple food his father had packed. Just when he thought the day couldn't get worse, a boy walked over. Tall, strong, with perfectly combed hair and a proud smirk. His name was Kabir. "You're the one the billionaire brought in, right?" Kabir asked, arms crossed. Ayan nodded. Kabir laughed. "You think just because someone rich likes you, you belong here." A few other boys joined him. "We've been here for years," one said. "We earned our place." "You're just charity," Kabir added, tossing Ayan's lunchbox to the ground. Ayan bent to pick it up, his fingers shaking. "Careful," Kabir whispered. "This school eats people like you." Ayan didn't cry. He didn't reply. He just stood up, picked his things, and walked away. That evening, when he reached home, his father was waiting with a smile. "How was your first day?" Ayan didn't answer. He simply hugged his father tightly. "I'm tired, Papa. I'll try again tomorrow." The next day, and the one after that, things didn't change much. Ayan sat alone. He studied hard, listened carefully, but kept quiet. He didn't want trouble. But he noticed something. Whenever the teacher asked a tough question, the other students looked confused. Ayan knew the answers, every time. One afternoon, in science class, the teacher drew a machine on the board and asked, "Can anyone explain how this water pump works?" The class went silent. Ayan raised his hand slowly. The teacher smiled. "Yes, Ayan." He stood up, nervous at first. But once he began speaking, his voice became strong. He explained the parts, the pressure system, and how the pump helped farmers like his father. The class was stunned. Even Kabir was silent. After class, a quiet boy named Samar walked up to Ayan. "Hey, that was amazing. Do you want to sit with us at lunch today?" Ayan nodded slowly, surprised. That day, for the first time, he didn't eat alone. He smiled softly as he opened his lunchbox. "Maybe, just maybe," He was starting to belong. Principal Sharma sat in his large office, looking at the computer screen. His fingers were still. The email he just received had one line. "I will be visiting the school tomorrow morning." It was from Mr. Rahim Saeed, the billionaire. The same man who had called him weeks ago and asked why a poor farmer's son was expelled. The same man who had paid the full school fees for that boy. And now, he was coming in person. Sharma stood up and walked around the room. He felt nervous. He hadn't taken Ayan seriously. To him, Ayan was just another charity case. He thought the boy would drop out in a few days, unable to keep up. But something strange was happening. Teachers had started talking about him. Some said Ayan was the smartest in class. Others said he was polite, hardworking, and never late. Even the science teacher had said, "That boy speaks like someone who's lived 2 lifetimes." The principal sighed. He remembered how coldly he had expelled Ayan that day. He didn't even listen to the boy's side. He just saw the torn shoes, the faded school bag, and made up his mind. Now, a billionaire was coming because of that same boy. He picked up the phone and called Ayan's class teacher. "How is Ayan doing?" The teacher replied quickly, "Sir, honestly, he's one of the best students I've ever seen. He's helping others too. Very humble child." "Is he treated well by the other students?" There was silence. "Not really, sir," the teacher said quietly. "Some students tease him, especially Kabir and his group. But Ayan never complains. He just keeps trying." The principal ended the call and stared out the window. That evening at home, Ayan sat with his father under the stars. His books were open, but his eyes were tired. "Are you okay?" his father asked. Ayan nodded slowly. "Papa, why do people hate others who have less money?" His father was quiet for a moment. "Because they fear them," he said softly. "Fear them?" "Yes, they fear your strength, your hunger to rise, your ability to survive without comfort. That scares them." Ayan looked up, confused. His father smiled and patted his shoulder. "Keep walking, Beta. Let them fear your light." The next morning came fast. The school gates opened early. Teachers stood straight. Guards checked every corner. A black helicopter flew over the school and landed in the nearby sports ground. Everyone gathered near the field, whispering. Students looked out of windows. Some ran to see. The billionaire, Mr. Rahim Saeed, stepped out in a clean white kirtan and sunglasses. He looked calm, powerful. The principal rushed to welcome him. "Sir, welcome, sir. It's an honor." Mr. Saeed raised his hand. "I didn't come for greetings. I came to see Ayan." Students started whispering. "Ayan? Why Ayan?" The principal led Mr. Saeed into the building. They walked into Ayan's classroom. The class stood up in surprise. Mr. Saeed looked around, then smiled when he saw Ayan sitting near the window. "So this is the boy who made me proud," he said. Ayan stood slowly, nervous. The billionaire walked up to him and shook his hand. "I read your science notes. Very impressive. You remind me of myself when I was your age, curious and brave." The entire class stared. Even Kabir looked shocked. Then Mr. Saeed turned to the students. "You all think having money makes you better?" he asked. "This boy has more strength and honesty than many rich men I know." He then faced the principal. "And you, sir, you expelled him for being poor. But let me tell you something. He may not have money, but he has value." The principal looked down, ashamed. "I was wrong, sir," he said quietly. "I didn't see his worth." Mr. Saeed nodded. "Then make it right." Later that day, the principal called a special assembly. All the students and teachers gathered in the big hall. The air was heavy with whispers and tension. The principal stepped on stage. "Today, I want to apologize," he said. "To a boy I judged wrongly, a boy who proved that courage and intelligence are not limited to the rich." He called Ayan on stage. The crowd clapped, slow at first, then louder. Some students stood up. Even Kebir clapped, his face red with guilt. Ayan stood tall, not out of pride, but out of quiet strength. He had come to this school in worn shoes. But now he stood in front of hundreds, not as a poor boy, but as an example. The sun was just beginning to set, painting the school walls in golden light. Ayan stood alone near the same school gate where everything began, where the guard had stopped him, where students had mocked his shoes, and where the principal had once looked at him with cold eyes. But today, everything felt different. Behind him, he could hear students laughing, not at him, but with him. Some waved as they passed. A few walked up just to say, "You're amazing, Ayan. Hey, we're proud of you, man. You're the real topper here." Ayan smiled gently, but didn't say much. His eyes were looking far, lost in thought. He remembered the day his father had walked him to this very gate. His father had stood outside, hands dusty, clothes torn, but with eyes full of hope. Now that same man was walking toward him again, but this time through the main gate. Mr. Saeed was beside him, arm around his shoulder like an old friend. The entire school turned to look. Whispers rose again, but this time there was no cruelty, only respect. The guard, who once had shouted at Ayan's father to leave, now stepped aside with his head lowered in shame. Ayan's father looked around, confused, nervous. "Why is everyone staring?" he asked quietly. Ayan smiled. "Because, Papa, you walked through the gate like a king today." His father chuckled, still unsure. But Mr. Saeed turned and said with a warm voice, "Sir, today they are not looking at your clothes. They are seeing the man who raised a giant." That moment froze in time. Teachers came out to greet them. The principal walked forward and touched the old farmer's feet. "I misjudged you both," he said, tears in his eyes. "I'm deeply sorry." The father simply nodded. "I don't need your sorry," he said. "Just never do this to another poor child again." Mr. Saeed smiled and handed the principal a file. "This," he said, "is a trust I've created in Ayan's name. It will fund the education of 10 poor students every year, and Ayan will help choose them." Gasps rose from the crowd. The boy who once walked in with torn shoes was now giving others a chance to walk freely. Later that evening, as the last students left and the sky turned dark, Ayan stayed behind. He sat quietly near the school gate, just thinking. Then he stood up, walked to the spot where he had once been stopped, and gently placed a small pair of old shoes there. A note was attached. "For the next child who thinks he doesn't belong." And with that, Ayan walked away, his head held high, his heart full. He was no longer the boy with worn shoes. He was the boy who changed everything.